Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29, back again for another DC comic review. And as you can see this time around, we are covering three particular DC comics. We have Action Comics, and this is for Rainbow Press and Comics. The latest issue, 1034. We have Superman 78, which I must admit I really enjoyed. And last but not least, Detective Comics Batman issue 1042. Well, it's time to move on to the first one, which will be reviewed, which will be the Action Comics. So, first things first, as you know, there are things that I like to review and rate in my comics. And as you can see, this story actually comes to its first conclusion, or its first end of arc conclusion. And I believe that this will be like the key tipping point, or it looks like this is going to be the key tipping point, to which takes Superman to Warworld, as shown in Future State. A lot of terrible ideas in that, such as still keeping John Samuel Kent aged up when he should be brought back to his original age, 10 going on to 11. But first things first, this rating for the cover. What cover did I give, or what did I give the rating for in regards to cover? And as you know, I do like my covers to at least give an indication of something that is happening within the story. Well, for the cover, does it in some way match to what is happening in the story? Surprisingly, it does, and I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Just to let you know, I will not be covering the backstories of the Detective Comics Batman and Action Comics Superman, only the key stories. Now, jumping into the next thing, what about the rating for the art? Well, let's see some art around the beginning of the story. Lois showing that she can be a bit of badass with some Kryptonian tech. Which is really nice to see again. Last time we sort of saw that wasn't under Bendis. It was under Tomasi. Now some art towards the middle of the story. And my goodness, I really love what the artist has done here. It almost reminds me of Moses being used by the power of God to split the Red Sea in half. And this is what we get in this particular splash page. And of course, the rating for the art is definitely worth it. Now to move towards the end of the story. And as you can see here, Superman and Supergirl, along with our favourite Superboy, well, not favourite, but being a little bit made more likeable through Philip Kennedy Johnson. Returning to the Fortress of Solitude. For this, overall, I gave the art a 7.5 out of 10, as I felt like it really worked with the story. Jumping into the story rating, did the story in any way, shape or form cover any of these items? Starting off with comic references. No, but it probably wouldn't have hurt to sort of like make reference to the first place to which this all started, with the beginning of this particular arc. Time, we didn't get any indication of when this was taking in time of day. Again, it would help the story. Moving into locations, of course, there was that place in the middle of the sea, but it wasn't very clearly pointed out as to where in the sea. The same issue was actually in the last issue. And I must admit, it should at least be fixed up. Moving into the cast of characters, we had Lois, we had Tao La, who you see on the front cover there. And what we're starting to see here in regards to Tao La, in regards to this story, she's practically become a mind-controlled puppet for Mongol. And guess who has to come in and save both Lois and also somehow stop Tao La? Superman, Superboy, Supergirl, and of course we had Aquaman show up in the story. I must admit, this story had its good points and had its fair points that were enjoyed, but as this story ends, it feels like, do I want to start to drop this series and just follow certain comics? Not all my comics, but certain comics, just so my list is a little bit smaller. But overall, I gave the story a 7 out of 10, to which, yes, I'm still practically collecting this. I look forward to see where the next story takes place. And I believe it's going to be heading into Warworld by the way it's looking. Hopefully, we do get a good ending in regards to what happens in the story, where it's taking us. Because we don't want the future state ending. Overall story rating, 7 out of 10. Time to move into Superman 78 issue 1. So, now we finally move into Superman 78 issue 1. And I must admit, this has a writer I have personally enjoyed reading through Hawkman with. And that is Robert Venditti. And I must admit, this first issue, if you don't have a copy of it, grab yourself a copy of it. If you've watched the Superman 78, you'll want to pick this up. And I mean, you want to pick this up. Well, jumping into first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside the story? Yes, it bloody does. And I really like what has been done with the cover. I would have liked to have also gotten one of the variant covers as well with this. And it was the variant cover to which Superman was holding the Krypton crystal. But you know what? I'm fine with this. It's a wonderful cover and it works really well with the story. So for the cover rating, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Oh my goodness, this was really good. Time to move into the art, to which we'll see some art around the beginning, middle, and of course the end. Now this is some of the art around the beginning, and this is sort of set around Krypton's last days in the Superman 78 movie universe. And in it we catch a glimpse of somebody. I wonder who that somebody might be. Someone connected to the cover? You bloody bet so. Now as we jump to the middle, we see Superman going up against a particular robot that has landed in Metropolis, thinking that he's gotten it, only to get beat down. My goodness. This art was really done well for the story. Yeah, okay, you're going to get a few panels where the art isn't so great, but overall, I liked it enough that it helped me enjoy the story. And now some art towards the end. Now this takes place after Superman's fight with the particular robot that was sent from space. It almost felt like a Terminator droid of sorts, but it was still good anyway. And of course, we get a bit of a location as to where the message is being sent to. For the art, I gave it the same as the cover. 7.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed the art in this. Moving into the story, okay, first issue doesn't need references. But, hey, if you want a reference, remember the Superman 78 movie and go check that out. Now, with Robert Venditti on this title, we did actually get a time reference to which I sort of didn't expect to see, but sure enough, it was there. I still included it, to which it was 2.7 light years ago, and we had long ago, just in the time references. And I thought that was really good, especially for the beginning, because it worked with the story and worked with what was taking place. With the locations, we of course had Krypton, to which we got to see Superman being sent out by his parents, Jor-El. We also had Earth, or where we saw with Earth, Metropolis. We even had the Daily Planet make an appearance, which is very important, especially for the character of Superman. We had, of course, the furthest reaches of space, which was towards the end of the story, and of course Brainiac's ship. And it's interesting, and it's also good too, that this part 1 is actually called Brainiac, and we get to see a little bit about his character, and it lines up with what you see in the comics, that yes, he can be a bit of a collector of sorts, but we see in this particular story that we don't know all of his motivations yet. Very nice, very well done. We also had Lois and Clark, which you saw early in the story, or which you see early in the story, who becomes Superman and goes up against the robot, which you actually saw in some of the pictures that I showed you, just in the pages that I showed you. Not all of them, but the key pages. To which I gave this story an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you, Robert Venditti. I'm definitely looking forward to reviewing the next issue. Now it's time to move on to Detective Comics Batman. Okay, now it's time to move on to Detective Comics Batman, which is worked on by Mariko Tamaki, with some art by Belair and also Henriks and Brogan Bogner. I'll just call him Bog. And moving straight into first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that's happening inside the story? Sure enough, in some part it does, but we don't get to see this exact thing happen. To which I gave the cover art 7 out of 10. Now to move into the internal art, I will not be covering the backstory. Only the first story. So you will see some art around the beginning, middle, and the end. Jumping into some art at the beginning of the story, and we finally get to see where this is taking place, which is downtown Gotham City. And of course we have Batman there, and a couple of villains watching him. And as you can see, there's something wrong that's happened with Batman here. And it's got to do with a character by the name of Vile. Now, jumping into the middle of the story, to which we see Batman going up against Mr. Worth once again. But you must realize something. It's not actually Batman doing this. It's got to do with the thing that's taken over him. To which Vile has some control over Batman. Which sort of makes you think, how dangerous is Vile? That he almost makes Batman look like a freaking alien. Or parasite. And last but not least, towards the end of the story, to which we see Batman walk away. So it sounds like they're trying to give Batman the Daredevil treatment. For the art, I gave it a 7 out of 10. But how much was it affected by the story? Now, jumping into the story, as you know, there are certain things that I enjoy in my stories. Were there any comic references to help sort of round and ground the reader as to some of the things that are happening in this story? No, not at all. That's a little bit useless there, Miss Tamaki. If you cannot provide any comic references, there have been the rare occasions where you have included it in your stories, but with a lack of it, this helps to destroy the credibility of the story, as well as the characters of what you're trying to point out. What about time? Like, what time of day is this taking place? Did we at least get to know, was this taking place in the early mornings in Gotham? Was it taking place, I don't know, maybe 11:30 p.m. at night? No. Would it help the story? Yes. Okay, what about location? Well, we only got one location, but it wouldn't have hurt to include, say, the cemetery, which was shown at the end. For we know, that could be any bloody cemetery in Gotham. So, moving into the cast of characters, we saw Penguin, Mr. Worth, Batman, of course, Vile, who played a big part in controlling Batman to making him into a killer of sorts in this. We also had Huntress, who, I must admit, off-screen or off-panel somehow took out Vile, which I felt was a little bit stupid. They could have actually done it on panel. And of course, Miss Donovan, one of the doctors in the Gotham City Hospital, but again, we don't know what exact hospital in Gotham City. Wonderful, not. And that helps to destroy some of the credibility of the story. In other words, you lose points. To which I gave this story, I was almost going to give it a 7 out of 10, but then I changed my mind. I gave it a 6 out of 10. Well, that's all for now. Please don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Until then, let's keep it colourful. And a big thanks to all my subscribers and any new subscribers who might want to join the channel. Have yourself an awesome day.